Thank you all for joining. We are with the brilliant Karen Attiah, who is finding a new path forward, an exciting one, and I'm excited to be part of it and having this conversation. If you've followed the news the last few weeks, the Washington Post ended their relationship with Karen, and we'll talk about why in just a moment, and just about her history in this space and what the future looks like. But Karen, uh, just how are you managing? I don't ask how are you anymore. I ask how are you managing with the world on fire the way it is.
Honestly, the last couple of days haven't been managing. I mean, really, I haven't been able to get through this without the support of friends. I've been buying a lot of candles, like
Good.
like scents. I'm getting through this with candles and like things that smell good, and a lot of blankets and Chinese food, frankly.
That's great.
Um,
That's great. Anything to find your comfort moment, right? That's kind of the way we have to move forward. So just for those who aren't aware, I want them to hear it from you directly. You were at Washington Post for almost a decade, or about a decade. You and for those, I will say, Karen is one of the first editors of a major paper that gave me a shot to publish my op-eds on the human rights issues I care about. And so I owe her a lot for elevating me when a lot of other folks were telling me to go pound sand. And so when I say she's a leader who walks the walk, I'm not just saying that to be nice. I'm saying that because it's true. And a lot of what I've been able to accomplish was because of her giving me that platform. And so I never got a chance to thank you for that directly, Karen, but I feel like there's no better way than to do it, face to face effectively. So thank you for that.
oh,
um,
don't do this to me.
it's
Oh
true.
my god.
It's true,
Uh,
and I've been fortunate to follow your career for all these years, and I was heartbroken to see what happened at the Washington Post, especially because you stood strong through so much. We'll talk about Jamal Khashoggi in a minute, but if you could just share with our viewers, kind of what happened, what the excuse was they gave you, and kind of what's happened since.
yeah. Um, Oof, I'm still gathering myself. I still remember editing you several pieces at the very, very beginning of my time as a global opinions editor. And even then, I remember being a global opinion. It didn't exist. I mean, Bezos kind of gave this mandate like, oh, we want more international voices, and my bosses were like, well, how do we figure out how to do that? And I was like, well, first of all, you're going to need an air traffic controller to at least, try to recruit. Like that was my job, was to try to recruit the most interesting people from around the world. And for me, I had been following you on social media, I think, for quite a long time. My background also is human rights, international affairs. So I think you just always had smart takes. And so, yeah, I think I reached out, and there's like a couple of pieces that we did together. So, um,
Yeah, yeah,
you're,
and I'll just add before you continue is I think one of the things you taught me was, I already had some good training from a legal standpoint as a lawyer on fact check and referencing, but your ability, I think one of the most valuable lessons I learned from your editing was how to take these complex legal concepts and make sure that the masses can understand them. And really, that is what makes, in my view, an amazing editor, right? Someone who can take a complex idea and make sure that people can actually digest it. So you're not just talking in circles. When I was still fresh out of law school, only 4 or 5 years out, still writing briefs and all this legal jargon, and you're like, okay, this is good, but here's how we make it infinitely better. And those are lessons that I've taken to this day. So for anyone who's appreciative of my Substack writing, you can blame Karen for that.
oh my gosh. You're the second kind of global opinions writer that I've had an interview with about my firing today that has said writing with me was their first time sort of in front of a big audience.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. All right. I'm now to my firing. um, Oof, well, I mean, yeah, anyone who's followed me, I mean, I going from an editor then to a writer and just focusing on my own voice. And I decided to focus on the things that matter to me, which frequently have to do with race and power and same human rights. I mean, I find that all of these things tend to fall under human rights. And so uh, yeah, I guess I'm known for saying the damn thing, not going straight to the point. And so that includes both on the op-ed sort of side, the formal columns that everybody knows, but then also doing more videos and social media and stuff. So part of the job is to comment sort of timely in a timely manner, eloquently, sticking to facts and stuff like that, right? So the Charlie Kirk shooting, I mean, again, in the backdrop of my career, I've had so many sort of events, highly emotional things, breaking news that I'm sort of trained, it's ingrained in me to, you're thinking in your mind, your editors want a take. They want what do you make sense of this thing that just happened? But then also in my mind, it's okay, exercise restraint. We don't have all the facts. We don't, even when I first saw the shooting video, I was like, oh, do I even know this is real? Like, yeah. And my first thought was, "Oh, this is terrible." My second thought was like, "Oh, wait, what? New window, new alert shooting in Colorado at a school at the exact same time." So my first thought was like, "My God, America." Like this violent, sick country, right? From kids to, you know, Charlie Kirk, who I already was familiar with as this, conservative firebrand activist, right? And we'll get to that later. But I was just like, oh my goodness, America's sickness with guns strikes again. And here we go, the same kind of rhetoric about thoughts and prayers, and this is not who we are, and political violence has no place here. Was that empty rhetoric was coming, and I was just like, sick of it.
Yeah.
I'm not someone in general who I said that on my Blue Sky. I don't care for empty rhetoric. This country is sick. Yeah. So I mean that was the tenor of my opening kind of, commentary in relation in the aftermath of the Kirk shooting was a general lament about America and about our empty rhetoric in response to these sort of horrific occurrences, right?
Mhm.
Nothing out of the ordinary, if anything, sort of a routine. I didn't think I was saying anything revolutionary. That was just all I had because
Well, I think it speaks to just how tragically accustomed, and
Mhm.
I feel pained saying this, but how tragically accustomed the public discourse is to mass shootings and the
Yeah,
shootings. That what do you mean we have a sickness because of these mass shootings? Well, we're the only developed country in the world that suffers this. It keeps reminding me of that Onion headline that started as satire, but now has become fact, where it says, no way to stop this. Says only country in the world where this happens as a matter of routine. And
right.
so the fact that that astute and common sense observation is now seen as an overreaction is just,
Mm,
I mean, I read the letter that you posted of the Washington Post when your termination letter. And I'm like, wait, a journalism outlet wrote this? Like, this is like a third grade C minus maybe. Like, what are we doing here? How is this a coherent sentence or coherent argument? How are you going to look at a country that has 50,000 gun deaths a year, 400 mass shootings a year, and say that the person calling that a sickness is overreacting? That to me is mind-boggling. It doesn't compute.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I've had spicy social media situations before. Obviously, anyone who's followed me um can see that. For me, I mean, I and it wasn't even that I was trying to avoid controversy. It's just like I am tired. This is all I got. Here we go again, and that this gun violence problem has even consumed, one of the Second Amendment's. That's how bad this And that was my first sort of thought. So of course, I was saying, of course, political violence is wrong. Of course, this murder is wrong, and we haven't we haven't been able to stop. We've normalized it. We've become desensitized to it, and very specifically. And then this is where I get specific, but again, not spicy and and still factual, which was the perpetrators. Statistically, according to the FBI, according to well, up until recently, the DOJ, the
Yeah,
perpetrators of mass shootings, and political extremist violence overwhelmingly are white and male and, well, young-ish. And I just said, um, actually, I was not even talking about the Kirk shooting. I was talking about Melissa Hortman's assassination. Again, in response to political violence has no place here. I was like, oh, really? Political violence has no place here? We just had some assassinations in Minnesota,
yeah,
and America saw that and
yeah,
shrugged and moved on. They killed her husband, and her dog. And America shrugged and moved on. So, in addition to that, my comment was part of what keeps this country so violent is the coddling, the performance of empty care, the absolution, the sort of forgiveness, the shrugging of white men who espouse and commit violence.
yeah.
And that's just facts. That's just, I mean,
It is.
documented in terms of media coverage.
Well, the irony, I just add to that really important point, Karen. The irony is that there's actually a detailed, comprehensive study that I've cited numerous times about how media will coddle white mass shooters and further demonize Black children and Black people in general who commit violence. And that study was published by the Washington Post. So I mean,
What?
it's literally in the Washington Post that this is not
Yeah.
opinion. The Washington Post
Oh,
itself has reported on this in detail. It's a
wait,
brilliant study. I'll dig it up for you. I'm sure you can dig it up yourself as well if they haven't canceled your post access. But this is this is why it's so insane to me that they would say that. And then the second thing I'll add to that is just the irony of them terminating you for your comments, allegedly praising political violence. And then this week, the editorial board put out not an opinion writer from some random corner of the internet, which would be grotesque enough. But the Washington Post editorial board put out a piece this week saying maybe it's a good idea to invade Afghanistan and take over this airfield again because that's what Trump wants. How is that not political violence? Please tell me how that somehow, like, commenting on the fact that white men are the primary, culprits of mass shooting. Apparently, that's offensive. But stating that the nuclear-powered U.S. military, the most powerful military on the earth, should again invade Afghanistan, that's not political violence. I mean, the hypocrisy is. It would be laughable if it wasn't so offensive. Like you could pitch the script to Hollywood and they'd be like, "That's not realistic. You're way out of line. Make it more sober." But this is what the Washington Post is doing. It's mind-boggling to me.
yeah, yeah, and again, to be very, very specific, like at least in my termination letter, which my post was called gross. They characterized him as gross misconduct, and that my post posed a possible safety risk to my colleagues, is what they said. And very specifically, and again, reminding everyone that I'm not a straight up news reporter, I'm an opinion columnist. So I'm given latitude, even within the social media policy of the Post, to be able to advocate, as well. Um, Specifically, what the Post said that I violated was that I disparaged Kirk when I brought up white men, and disparaging on the basis of protected characteristics, race and gender. So it's very specific. I, as a columnist that writes on race and gender and human rights, got fired because I talked in very general terms about violent white men. Actually, go back, and that's why I have my post still up. I never said white men. I said restrictive. We're the grammar nerds in your in your audience. The grammar. I used the relative restrictive clause, which means I'm very much only talking about violent white men. So the ones who pick up the guns, the ones who espouse hatred. I never said all white men. It's the way the post letter reads is unless they're the ones who are sort of telling on themselves, right, and they believe all white men are violent. I never said that, right?
Yep.
So it was mind-boggling to me that my posts, it almost felt like it proved my point, this sort of that I'm getting fired over talking about white men. I'm getting fired over talking about the coddling of white men, when again I'm talking about the coddling of violent white men who statistically, according to the Post's own research,
Yep.
are treated differently by the media when the shooters are white men than they are when it's perceived to be someone else. Like, I was just stating facts. That's why I went on with my day with after I posted the blue sky. There's no backlash. There's
Yeah.
no, people are just like, I didn't say anything, frankly, I didn't think I said anything that interesting. I just was
Yeah.
like, this is all I got right now. And I went on about my day and went to my martial arts class the next day. And then I got a call from the Post and I missed it. I didn't get to pick it up. And then 2 or 3 minutes later, email subject line, notice of termination. And I was shut out of my email like that.
Wow. And you a decade of service, and that's what it comes down to. You know,
Mm,
what you should have done, Karen, is you should have been a white man who suggests that all homeless people should be euthanized and killed. Then you would be Brian Kilmeade at Fox News, and you would still have a job.
yeah.
So technically, it's your fault for not being a wealthy white man calling to execute all homeless people. I mean, this is the absurdity that we're in. That being a black woman who comments on the documented Washington Post fact that white men commit the most mass shootings is an unforgivable termination. But being a wealthy white man who calls for the execution, the state Nazi style execution of homeless people, which is conservatively a million people nationwide. That's just,
Mm,
oh, my bad. Didn't mean to accidentally call for genocide. Let me go ahead and apologize and we'll move on. I mean, it's nonsensical. Um,
yeah.
if you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Karen Attiah, who is just a brilliant journalist, has been a thought leader in the human rights space for well over a decade, and excited about her new chapter. I'm excited about her new chapter, even as we're navigating this Washington Post situation. You have the golden hour here on Substack. It's growing rapidly. Folks are being drawn to it because they're drawn to you. Real quickly, talk about the golden hour. What is the niche that you're focused on? What can folks expect? And if you're following, we have over 500 people, almost 600 people watching this.
Oh.
If you subscribe to me and you haven't subscribed to Karen yet, please do. Please throw some love her way because we can celebrate and be glad that Jimmy Kimmel got his job back. But again, uh, not everyone is so fortunate, and that's unfortunate. But we can change that. It's the many over the money. So if you have the ability, even as a free subscriber, if you have the ability to throw some coin at her, please do, because this is the kind of support we need to build. These are the kind of coalitions we need to build. So yeah, the golden hour. What's it all about? What can folks expect when they subscribe?
For sure. One quick question. People are asking me about closed captions. Do I put that on? I'm still figuring out Substack, you guys. So please,
I think
be
maybe
patient.
I do. I think it's an option that they can use to put on as closed captions. And if you do miss this, by the way, when I post this, it will have the full transcript as well. So you will be able to watch it with the full transcript once I post it live.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I mean, gosh. I actually, for me, like the golden hour, besides the fact that I like gold, I just do. um, I thought a long time about even just the name of it, and the golden hour. Of course, if you have any photographers in the audience, referring to the time of day when it's beautiful to be able to shoot. So I think, and don't blame me if I'm getting this wrong, but I think it's around kind of sunrise and sunset when the lights are hitting just right. Yeah, but in sort of researching, I also realized that it's a medical term. It's a trauma term. It's an emergency term. It also refers to a very slight window of time between when someone has come in with an injury or a wound. So it's basically a critical period in which you need to act before someone is in mortal danger, right? So I'm just someone who likes double meanings.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And I guess I think about it in general, maybe, I, s- uh, I think as a journalist, you're forced to look at both the beauty of the world and the darkest abysses of like the world and the human experience. Particularly, I think in human rights, right? We see people who are fighting beautifully for themselves and for each other and for their communities, and then I have seen the depths of oppression. When my writer Jamal Khashoggi was murdered by the Saudi state, I've seen the ugliness of greed and of violence, and not necessarily up close. I mean, in a sort of secondhand way. Obviously, I'm still breathing and living and everything, but I think that's something that I hold together light and dark a lot. So that's the idea. I mean, largely, I mean, I didn't start it thinking I would be fired by the Washington Post and that, all of my content would start coming here. But I think maybe you're my first opportunity to sort of introduce the way that I think about these things. And um, that's just kind of an encapsulation of kind of who I am and how I think about it is that like we can't be afraid to look at the light and the dark, right?
Right.
I think in the news business, and I teach this actually in the class that I teach, is that the news business, it's called if it bleeds, it leads, right? That there's a over sort of subscription literally to negativity and darkness. And I'm not saying like that we should turn a blind eye per se, but I also do believe in the power of sharing kind of people who are getting shit done
Yeah.
and get shit done right. So I think this will give me a lot more freedom to highlight the organizers who are figuring it out. Like go back into history and look at like what are the examples of mobilizing power in ways that are good and effective. Like I think in this moment I have an opportunity to sort of uh, cultivate some power in the sense of hope. Hope is power. Hope is like
Right.
internal.
Uh,
I need to do it for myself, even if nobody else is reading. Like, I think I need to be able to draw into like, okay, so like, how do we do this? Who's done it? And who succeeded? So that's the thought. I obviously, as I'm still in this hurricane of a WAPO termination, I will be posting kind of updates on all of that as much as I can. So hashtag stay tuned, hashtag watch this space. Soon,
yeah.
y'all.
I,
Uh,
I love your focus on hope. And you already know the James Baldwin quote where he talks about hope, where he's asked, how do you avoid despair, or how do you manage despair? And he, responds to the journalist that I don't despair. I'm angry, but I'm not. I don't despair. You can't tell the children that there's no hope. And
yeah.
he talks about the importance of hope in this space. And I think one of the themes that we're seeing, at least that I'm seeing, from a lot of my readers and a lot of the emails that I get, I got this beautiful handwritten note that I have here. I think I'll try to. This might be
Aw.
it. This beautiful handwritten note I just got um, from a 92-year-old woman who is a subscriber and very graciously sent a few more bucks my way because she's like, I just, I see hope in the work you're doing. And this is a woman who at 92, right? I mean, she remembers World War II. She
Yeah.
remembers everything that, every major event short of World War One in the Great Depression in the 20th century up until now. And she talked about how seeing young people continuing to pick up the mantle and fight is what gives her hope.
Mm,
And that's why I think the question that I wanted to ask you is, and that readers ask me, is what gives you hope? What keeps you fighting despite the fact that it seems like things are getting worse every day? And I think in many ways they actually are.
mm.
But yeah, so what gives you hope? What keeps you fighting? What gets you out of bed to keep going another day?
Um, I think, well, two things. So anybody who's followed me, I think the tagline on my Substack right now is like writing, fighting, and beauty in dark times. So anyone who's followed me knows that I'm an Muay Thai fighter, like an amateur Muay Thai fighter. I've had a couple exhibition fights and have fought in a tournament, so I take a lot of um, strength and sort of discipline from my martial arts training as a way of life, to be honest, warrior philosophy. And there's one thing that like what my coach said about doing Muay Thai. Anyone who knows about Muay Thai, the art of eight limbs, it's a brutal martial art. You're using your elbows, you're using your knees, you can clinch. It's a really you learn how to take a lot of damage, honestly. I find it one of the most beautiful martial arts, despite that, something about the form, something about this almost like spirituality to it. It's just something that I've just always been drawn to. But one thing my coach
Is this the
said,
Tony Jaa? Is this the Tony Jaa martial arts, or is that what it is? Yeah,
so yeah, he his Tony Jaa, yeah, and I guess his is like Muay Baran, which is like the predecessor to Muay Thai. Don't get me started on martial arts stuff because I'm actually way more of a nerd than people understand.
I love it. That's the stuff that you should be nerd about. I love it. It's amazing.
I'm a total nerd. So like my coach said that fighting, is inherently like a negative thing. Like someone in the ring is trying to separate your soul from your body in front of your loved ones for fun, right? And I remember going through a fight camp, and I'm training like 2 hours a day. I'm cutting weight, and my coach was just like, "You have to be aggressively positive, like almost delusionally positive, in order to overcome sometimes the inherent negativity of what you're preparing to do, right?" And I think about that a lot. I think about delusional optimism,
I love it.
um, because it's something to where, and maybe the other form of this is I say this to my friends, I'm a bit of a besieged idealist. Like I just think a lot about, and I said this with Paul Krugman the other day. I think, in terms of writing and fighting, I think about I get the chance to write about the world as I think it should be, not as it is. I'm like, this is what I think is possible. And so you shoot for the moon, and like maybe the world knocks you down and you're like, oh, okay, a couple notches, but at least you're delusional enough to like shoot up there. So I think a lot about that with fighting and sort of with life. Like um and also my own personal background. My grandmother was a survivor of a refugee of the Biafra War. My mother was a survivor of Nigeria's brutal Biafra War in the late 60s. In fact, even right here, I have a picture of my grandmother, on my window. And I grew up knowing that my family came from war, that my mother survived war, that my grandmother had enough wisdom to save and archive the family's photos and documents and to get them out. My mother was an internally displaced person that like bouncing around from house to house for 2 years before they were evacuated to Ghana. They lost everything. Um, and so that's what I don't know, maybe it's at a cellular epigenetic level that like I come from literal war survivors. Um, and
Warriors. I mean, literal warriors, not just war survivors, but literal war. You need to be a warrior to survive that. And
yeah,
that's what I'm when I see you describe them and I see you describe what you're doing now as a Muay Thai fighter, warrior is the only word that comes to mind. So
yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So it's just, I don't know. I feel like I don't have a choice. It's just who I am. And I've seen my own sort of direct ancestors go through worse with a lot less and accomplish so much even more. Like I'm just like, how could I be? I still have a roof over my head. I still got a pretty cat. I've still got, I've still got so much, and um another thing, I mean, it was told to me that jobs come and go, but your mission will always remain. Your work will remain. And if anything, maybe now my work is actually way more free now. I'm like, oh,
Yep.
unleash, y'all aren't ready. Y'all will regret the rue the day.
That's right. I mean, I think that's the mentality we need to have, and that's why I say to the folks watching, subscribe to Karen because these things make a difference, right? I mean,
Yeah.
these things actually make a difference. For the folks who are able to put themselves on the line, like Karen, our responsibility is to provide that support. Not everyone can do everything, and so not everyone should feel the need to do everything. But if everyone can do one thing, and one thing that allows them to contribute that contribute. Some people contribute their time, some people contribute their financial resources, some people contribute their expertise. And what I always tell folks is it's your responsibility to reflect internally and you really answer yourself honestly, uh, where can I do the most good? And then go full speed ahead into that and be unapologetic about that. And I think when I see, you and the work you're doing, Karen, to me, I was actually heartbroken when I saw your post that mainstream outlets didn't bother to invite you or didn't bother you to have you come on and tell their story. And I think it's just such a vivid contrast of what we're seeing, right? Stephen Colbert gets canceled and makes headline news for God knows how long. Jimmy Kimmel, same thing. The mere thought of Seth Meyer or Jimmy Fallon being attacked by the president goes full speed ahead. But here, with the work you're doing, which is arguably just as seismic and national and international in scope, there's immediate response. And that's where I tell folks that we have two options. We could either let the status quo continue or we can bring about meaningful change. And when we talk about, and I want to get your thoughts on boycott. For me, a boycott, like we're talking about the boycott of Disney or the boycott of Washington Post, it can't simply be for the company to change their bad behavior. Because if that was the case, the Montgomery bus boycott probably didn't need to last 381 days. It probably could have, been negotiated out after a month, and the company says, "Okay, we'll figure something out and move forward." That bus boycott lasted 381 days because they wanted to change the systems that enabled the bad behavior. It wasn't just about one bus being racist and white supremacist. It was about a system that enabled racial segregation. And then when the Supreme Court finally ruled 381 days later that, yeah, racial segregation is wrong, that's when that boycott ended.
Yeah.
What do you see as the end game of these boycotts? What systemic changes do you want to see, and what should folks be working towards to make a reality?
Yeah. So, here's what I think, and I'll say this with all sincerity. Like, there are still journalists who are doing amazing work and doing the best they can under the conditions that they've got. Um, what I will say about this question, and this alludes back to what you said earlier, right? Is boycotts you know work or can work. Of course, my lawyers are watching. I'm not telling anybody, necessarily what to do, in my case or anything like that. I would say, hey, support me with your canceled subscription, subscribe to the Golden Hour by Karen. Yeah. But the thing about these civil rights movements, even what I saw when I was teaching at Columbia and watching and being in the encampments during last year, is what happened during the bus boycotts is you had members of the community still giving people rights, like still sustaining people, feeding people, like making ways around the system. So yes, forcing the system to change, but still supporting people sort of around it. So I bring up the encampments in the sense of sort of seeing students who were basically saying we are sort of sitting out this university and we're going to sit in this lawn until we get the change we want. Seeing how people were bringing them food, people were bringing them first aid, professors were teaching them. So it's also about how do you sustain the people who are fighting, who are sacrificing, right? Because ultimately, like, boycotts are about sacrifice, whatever that looks like for people. And in order for a sacrifice to be sustained for as long as the Montgomery bus boycotts, for instance, um, those people making those sacrifices, the community came and backed them up. Right, like back them up in the sense of provided them alternative ways to still be able to work while they were showing the system their power
Yeah.
ultimately. And ultimately that's what this is about, is like in this age, and I've been saying this on my social media for such a long time, like, this is why organizing is so important, and it's much more than just the sort of hashtags and organizing as a discipline, is because it's about wielding the power that people have. We have it. You've seen what it looks like when sort of elected power officials retreat, when even here in Washington, D.C., right, when neighborhoods are driving ICE back out of their
Yep.
communities,
Right.
actual human shields around people. I mean, I've been saying this for a long time. No party is going to come save us, and damn sure isn't the Democratic Party. Uh, no politician is not going to save us. My last piece for the post that was focused on politics was that Obama is not going to come save you. He's not your emotional support president. Like right now, a lot of people, particularly those of the white majority, I will say, are going to have to learn how to organize and support the people, yes, who are on the front lines, but also learn how to sacrifice and do some really uncomfortable things.
Yep.
If anything, as a martial artist, I'm used to doing like really uncomfortable shit that I don't like.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think people think so much about sort of who can cancel and cancels the subscriptions, and then we get what we want. But like the actual practice of it all is, how do you support the people who are making those sacrifices? And
Right.
it's supposed to make you think about what would your life look like if you made choices with your money that aligned with your values. Like that's the true
Love,
exercise of it all.
love that. Love that. I can't remember the name of the thought leader who said this, but every dollar we spend is a reflection of the future we want. And
Correct.
your dollars should reflect that. And I really want to double down on this point, Karen, you made about it's going to require people to get a little bit uncomfortable. You
Mhm.
know, I was talking to a close friend of mine who is who's been an activist for a long time, African American, and he said, I think what white Democrats, what white liberals don't understand is that when they excuse things like genocide that the Biden administration was funding in Gaza, when they excuse the refusal to pursue universal health care, even though the black maternal mortality rate is three times that of white people, when they laugh at the idea of reparations, when they look at the wealth and income gap between black and white as astronomical as it is, right? The median white household wealth is $147,000, median black is $3,600, and it's getting worse. When they look at all that, and they say, hey, just excuse all this. Trump is going to be worse. What they're telling us is that they don't realize how bad it's been for marginalized communities all this time, and that they're
Mhm.
actually just afraid that they might now also have to suffer the exact same consequences. And I think that's not to say that Trump was by any means the better choice. I mean, I campaigned hard. I was knocking doors in Michigan and Georgia, especially in the final weeks, to make sure that Trump didn't win. So I don't want anyone to come at me and say it's your fault. No, I was on the front lines. I did everything I possibly could. I also recognize the reality that simply saying the other guy's worse is not a winning argument. And it's gonna and this close friend of mine said that maybe it'll require white liberals to feel the discomfort that black and brown people have felt for so long to realize that this is just not sustainable. And I'm like, I hope you're wrong. I hope that we don't get this guy back in the White House, because it actually will get worse, as bad as it already is, and it obviously has. But I think that's kind of what I hear when I see leaders like you make that point, that that
Mhm.
discomfort is a necessary part at this point. I'm training for the Chicago Half Marathon right now, and I just did a workout today, and it was very uncomfortable. It was extremely uncomfortable and painful, and I wanted to vomit because I pushed myself to the limit. But I know that that's a necessary process to get to the time I want to run, to get to the place that I want to run. To form all that into a question,
Mhm.
and I think we're down to our last couple of minutes because I want to be respectful of your time and everyone's watching. What are some examples of stepping out of the comfort zone that you think everyone should be willing to do, or that you think folks could do? Or to put it even more, as make that even a safer question, what are some examples of stepping out of the comfort zone that you would do in that
Mm.
situation that folks may or may not want to follow along with?
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm thinking about, and like I said, I'm trying to get into fight camp mode for a host of reasons. And when I'm like one thing that I'm actively trying to avoid is like petty squabbles, like the sort of infighting and like this sort of, and I've seen this where it's like, you know, oh, so and so just got canceled and all that. It's like, well, okay, we need to like rally for them. It's like, nah, not them. We don't like them because they said and they did this one thing that one time. And I'm just like, y'all, they're coming for all of us. Like this is the sort of like sometimes I don't think people understand that like we're at war and it's going to require a certain amount of um putting away, and I'm very careful when I say this because people use this word to excuse ignoring like genocide, right? But like the emphasis on purity from our side is like a serious Achilles heel. I grew up in Texas, right? So I grew up in like a red state. I grew up in the Bible Belt of North Texas. I'm an ex evangelical, actually, and I see how those folks go in lockstep, like message discipline. Maybe they don't like each other, but they have like a mission and they're focused and they're willing to put that aside to get done what they need to get done. Right. And I guess like for me, I've just been extremely conscious of, um, yeah, I mean, just keeping my sort of energetic fields clear of petty like gossip actually during this time. Um, I'm trying to like avoid things that like I'm not trying to look away from the world at all. It's my job to look towards it. But like I think that's the biggest thing. And I again I'm drawing from martial arts. I think on the left, liberals, whatever you want to call like the side, um, yeah, having this feeling of constant onslaught and constantly losing battles and losing fights, what that does to the psyche, even as an individual, even again as a fighter, if you're constantly being like pounded down by the man, it is so easy for your soul to want a win that you go after your own comrades, that you
Yeah.
start like nitpicking on the internet because you're gonna get an easy win because so and so didn't say that thing right. And so let's dogpile on that person because it's easier to do that than like the actual oppressor because you'll still get a certain sort of psychological feeling that you won. You haven't won shit, right?
I, I I agree. That makes sense. I mean, I've had folks ask me about even just with the Jimmy Kimmel situation that why are we welcoming people who are just now boycotting Disney? We should have been boycotting them years ago when they were supporting the Israeli military. And my point to them is it's important that we meet people where they are, and
Yeah.
especially when they start to do the good that we want them to do all along. We can't sit here on our high horses and say, well, you didn't do it good enough for me. So therefore, get out of here. We don't want you. Nonsense. We need to build a coalition. If somebody makes even the slightest inkling to want to dialogue or to want to, change their behavior for a positive improvement, I'm all for it. Malcolm X said this as well, that don't be in such a hurry to condemn somebody because they don't know what you know or act as you act. There was a time when you didn't know what you know now as well. And it's critical that we leave that door open for anyone at all times. I don't care if it's the last possible second before Judgment Day. If they're willing to say, "Hey, I want to do my best to serve humanity," great, let's do it. And if Judgment Day comes, let God figure it out. But in the meantime, don't be the one who shuts the door on somebody. I think that's such important advice. And I think as an ex-evangelical, you might appreciate that a bit more as well than most, because you've seen the fire and brimstone. Karen, such a privilege and pleasure. More than 800 people watching this, which is pretty
You
awesome.
guys, thank y'all.
Before we go, how can folks follow you? How can they support you? And any parting words of wisdom?
Yeah. So you guys, please subscribe to my Substack, The Golden Hour. Yes, paid subscriptions. Now that I am sort of fun employed by the posts, definitely help. So and thank you to everyone who's already subscribed. It's soul affirming as it is. Oh, I can actually pay the bills and still do my thing. Like this is possible. Okay, so that's the best way to directly support me, which is a paid subscription to the Golden Hour. For those of you who have been following me, this is not my first time being canceled. I got canceled by Columbia trying to teach race and media. So, beginning October 6th, I will be teaching a version of race, media, and international affairs online, a version of my Columbia course. And if you're interested, as low as $100 for 7 weeks of time with me, guest speakers, you can sign up on resistancesummerschool.com for the classes. And if you can't take the classes, you can always contribute towards scholarships, towards guest speakers. I pay all my guest speakers a fair wage. I want to make this um, a way to resist by learning the things that they don't want us to clearly learn about, clearly talk about. We will talk about whiteness. We will talk about Black people. We will talk about all the things related to race and mass media development. So that is Resistance Study Series. So that's my new kind of my rogue radical professor era is upon us. So those are the two ways people can best support me. Is the Resistance Study Series and the Golden Hour.
Amazing. Karen, thank you so much. For those of you who are watching this after the fact, please make sure you support her at the Golden Hour. Of course, support us at Let's Address This so we can continue to have these critical and important conversations that corporate and billionaire owned media just refuses to have. Karen, would love to have you back on really whenever, especially as we have major stories. But thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Thank y'all so much. Thank you, Kasim. All right. Good night, you guys. See
Take
y'all
care, guys.
soon.
Peace out.
All right.